Welcome back, everyone. It's almost Thanksgiving, and you know what that means, right? Time for pumpkin pie.
But seriously, have you ever stopped to think about where this tradition even comes from?
It's funny. A lot of people think pumpkin pie is like, a purely American thing, like something the Pilgrims brought over.
Yeah, it's got that whole classic Thanksgiving image, doesn't it?
Right, but it turns out that's not quite true.
Oh,
Yeah. Pumpkins, they are native to North America, but the early colonists, well, they mostly used them for savory dishes. Think like stews or roasted pumpkin.
huh. Interesting.
Yeah, they even made pumpkin ale back then.
Oh, wow. Okay. I'd love to try some of that sometime. But so, if the Pilgrims weren't the pumpkin pie pioneers, then where did it come from?
Well, get this, pumpkin pie actually first became popular in, wait for it, England.
No way, seriously.
Yep, like there are actual pumpkin pie recipes in 17th century English cookbooks.
Crazy. I never would have guessed that.
It's true. There's one in The Gentlewoman's Companion by Hannah Willey from like 1675. Wow, pumpkin pie's got some international roots then, huh?
It sure does. And while it might not have started here in America, it definitely became like a symbol of harvest time, especially in the US and Canada.
That makes a lot of sense. Thanksgiving's all about celebrating the harvest, right? Pumpkins are such a false staple. How could they not end up on the Thanksgiving table?
Exactly. As Thanksgiving became a national holiday here, pumpkin pie was just right there with it, becoming a real part of the whole celebration.
So we've got the English connection, and then pumpkin pie really finds a home in America. When did the recipe we know today start to appear, like the one we're all familiar with?
Well, the recipe for a more modern, custard style pumpkin pie actually showed up in the very first American cookbook.
Wow, the very first one.
Yeah. It's called American Cookery, published in 1796. It even calls for spices like cinnamon, ginger, nutmeg, the same ones we use today.
It's amazing how those warm spices have just like stuck around all this time. It makes me crave a slice right now. But you mentioned pumpkin pie was big in England too. Did they make their pies the same way as Americans?
Actually, no. 19th century English pumpkin pies, they were whole pumpkins stuffed with apples and spices and sugar. Then they'd bake the whole thing.
Wow, a whole pumpkin? That's a pretty different approach. So both countries were doing their own thing with pumpkin pie, huh?
Yeah, it's really interesting how those traditions developed. But, pumpkin pie's journey in America wasn't always, smooth sailing.
What do you mean?
Well, after the Civil War, there was some pushback against it in the South.
Really? Against pumpkin pie? Why?
Yeah, it was seen as like a symbol of Yankee culture.
Oh, wow. I guess that makes sense in the context of the time, right? Like, food can be so much more than just what's on our plate.
Exactly. And this resistance, well, it actually led to some pretty cool culinary adaptations. Some Southern cooks, they preferred sweet potato pie instead.
That makes sense.
And others, they decided to give their pumpkin pie a little Southern twist, adding things like bourbon and pecans.
Ooh, now that sounds delicious. It's like a fusion of traditions, right?
It is. And speaking of history's impact on food, there was actually a time when the U.S. government kind of discouraged people from making pumpkin pie for Thanksgiving.
Wait, seriously, I never heard that. When was this?
It was in 1947, right after World War II.
Yeah.
The Truman administration, they were promoting this voluntary egg rationing campaign, to help Europe.
Oh, right.
And, well, pumpkin pie uses a lot of eggs for the custard filling, so it kind of became a casualty of this effort.
Wow, I had no idea. It's amazing how a simple pie can be connected to such big events.
It really shows you food is never just about food, right? There's history, culture, even politics all mixed in.
Definitely. So pumpkin pie's had its ups and downs, but it's clearly a Thanksgiving icon now.
For sure. And, its influence goes beyond the dinner table, too. Pumpkin pie has made its way into art, literature, even music.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Like, there's that line in that old poem, Over the River and Through the Wood, hurrah for the fun is the pudding done. Hurrah for the pumpkin pie.
Exactly. And John Greenleaf Whittier, he actually wrote a whole poem about pumpkin pie called Song of the Pumpkin.
That's so cool.
He talks about that feeling of nostalgia, what moistens the lip and what brightens the eye, what calls back the past, like the rich pumpkin pie.
Oh, wow, those lines are perfect. They really capture that warm feeling you get with pumpkin pie. It's
Mhm.
more than just dessert. It's about family and memories and all that good stuff.
Right, and you even find it in some Christmas songs, like Rockin' Around the Christmas Tree and Sleigh Ride.
Wow, I never really thought about it, but you're right. Pumpkin pie's really made its mark. Speaking of which, Did you know that the world's largest pumpkin pie was made in Ohio?
Oh, yeah, I remember hearing about that. That was an impressive pie.
It was. It was 20 feet in diameter, weighed almost 3,700 pounds, and used over 1,200 pounds of canned pumpkin.
That's a lot of pumpkin. It really shows how much people love this dessert.
Can you imagine? I mean, how much whipped cream would you even need for a pie like that?
Oh, a ton, I bet. But even just a regular slice, it's got this way of bringing people together, especially at Thanksgiving.
Yeah, that's my favorite thing about Thanksgiving traditions. They're these shared experiences.
Hmm.
It connects us to family and friends and even like generations past.
It's that sense of like continuity, a shared heritage. It's what makes these traditions so powerful. And pumpkin pie, with its, rich and kind of unexpected history, it's a perfect example of that. From North America to England and then back again, it really shows how food traditions evolve and how they're connected to culture.
So next time you're having a piece of pumpkin pie, think about all that.
Yeah.
It's got a whole story behind it.
Yeah, and maybe it'll even inspire you to, look into the origins of some of the other dishes on your Thanksgiving table. You never know what you might find.
That's a great idea. Well, that's all the time we have for today. Thanks for joining us for this Thanksgiving exploration of pumpkin pie. I hope you all have a fantastic Thanksgiving filled with delicious food and good company.
Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.